Just as a quick intro again, just a reminder, these meetings are live streamed. The long-term plan, annual plan, so the consultation on the annual plan is out at the moment, and we are open for feedback until the 1st of April. So for any citizens out there who'd like to give us some feedback on the plan, please do so. Annual plan hearings are estimated to commence in May. That calendar is yet to be finalised. We have no finance reports this meeting or project approvals. Crown matters are progressing as planned, no insurance matters. And in terms of data, just to note that the agendas for these meetings are on the council website now, so all the reports are there. Go onto the council website, click on council and how it works, and you will come to the finance committee. So each month those reports will be uploaded. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, where we're going to have a quick look at the capital programme monthly performance report. Jed, welcome. Would you like to give us a quick overview?
Sure. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Council. Take the report as read. I'll cover off some highlights and then be able to answer any questions. We've got some head ofs, the delivery managers here as well, if there's anything specific that you need to know. All data has been captured as of the 22nd of February, so it's a live reporting system that's updated daily, but in order to get into Council reporting, the data you're looking at is from the 22nd of February. Budget remains at 571.8 million. The organisational forecast via the project managers is now 456 million. Look, that's a drop of 28.7 million since last reporting cycle. The biggest part of that drop was the Central City Transport Interchange, moving as a carry forward, being declared as a carry forward. So the payment for that is now the primary driver of that $23 million drop because of that. The following year payments will be amended in budgets for that. Current financial year spend is roughly 240 million at the time the data was extracted, and the net carry forward position has increased quite a lot to 115 million. Again, significant chunk of that is down to that single payment for the transport interchange moving into future years. Project manager is now forecasting to deliver roughly 80% of the original budget, and that's decreased from 85% in last reporting cycle. The spend over the first 7 months was $222 million. That's against the forecast for that period of 249 million, which is about an 89% success rate in terms of the spend forecast. Average monthly spend has dropped down to 31.7. It's just down a little from last month. Look, the key driver in that's probably the 2 festive months, or the accounting periods of January, February, when Christmas break starts to come through the finance system, and obviously summer as well in terms of some contractors. Forecasted spend for the remaining period of the year, remaining months, is 240 million. That requires a roughly $48 million month spend to meet that forecast.
Okay, thanks very much. So in terms of the overall budget, the 570, 70 million of that is for third-party payments or for stuff that's actually already been built, but we haven't paid for it.
Typically, right? Yes.
Yes, okay. In terms of the carry forwards and bringbacks on page 26, it'd be quite useful just to explain that process. So are these really projects that kind of miss the cut-off date? Or are there projects that have drastically changed?
Look, there's various reasons, and this month we've given you the top 10. So as you can see from the previous page, there are significant numbers of carry forwards bringbacks. It's a fluid programme. The challenge that Council and the organisation faces is when you take a snapshot of a yearly delivery cycle, often projects might overlap the end of the financial year. Typically, carry forwards are where work is still required to be delivered on a project, but the timing has changed. So it's not necessarily a financial situation. It just means that they won't achieve all the work that was budgeted for in this financial year. And a bring back can be for many reasons. It can be new projects that have been accelerated and brought forward because it makes sense to do so. It can be because a project itself that's in delivery has progressed faster than it was originally planned to, and it's a good news story to get it built and up and running. And it can also be where if one project is placed on hold for a variety of reasons, could be consulting issues, could be issues with our community, etc., then they may well bring another project into the mix to make sure that we're continuing to deliver in terms of capital. Yeah. So the net position, as it stands, is the difference between all of the carry forwards that are going forward versus the monies on different projects that are being brought back.
Okay, so we don't run a system where we think you have to spend this budget by June the 30th, so you go around digging up holes and filling them in. So it's really a project approach. And
it's a project approach, and the planning should take care of it. Even with the best planning, I've always said project delivery is an art form as much as a science. So you can't foresee stuff that you don't know when you dig the soil up and find issues, etc., or pipes that you didn't believe were there, or services that suddenly pop up 12 inches below the surface instead of 2 metres below the surface. So there's hundreds of reasons why. Typically they're well managed, but it's a timing issue, it's not a budgetary issue.
Okay. Dion?
Yeah, I've just got a couple of questions around some of the specific projects in there. The Performing Arts Precinct, the $12 million carry forward there, is that including the car park building or the car park money that was available?
I can't tell you that, Council, but I can certainly find out. Is that...
Yeah, I'm here. The answer to that question is there's
So you have to come to the table. Yeah, so.
There's two budgets. There's obviously the 30 that's in for the PAP, and there is a transport budget which is just some money in that budget as well for car parking in the area, and it's part and parcel of the business case that's coming forward to council on the 28th of March anyway. So it's something that's incled. The whole project delivery process is included in that paper that's coming to council.
Right. So okay, that was my next question: is when are we going to
28th
of March? Okay, cool. I'll write that down. The next one is around Victoria Street. Have we got any update around when? Obviously, there's a carry forward here. When are we going to see some action on this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so with Victoria Street, we were actually looking to update the ITI committee next week with a view to re-engaging with the public, assuming we get approval from ITI to go out and do that. We've certainly been in touch with all the major stakeholders down there, and as we've indicated previously, those in the southern portion are very positive about the proposed upgrade of Victoria Street. To the north, we haven't spoken with as many people, so we're a little bit uncertain what the response will be from them. But post next week's ITI, if we get their blessing, we would look to re-engage from a public perspective.
And how much more re-engagement do we need to do before we will start seeing things happen?
Well, there's a resolution of council which requires us to re-engage, so obviously we're going to meet that resolution. We think we're envisaging a couple of public drop-in sessions, so people can come along. It won't be consultation, so it'll be something less than that, but there'll be an opportunity for us to hear the views and preferences of the community, and then we'll come back to council with a recommendation in relation to the project.
And the slippage of time and all this extra work is not going to affect the end budget that you know of, or is there some budget problem constraints?
Oh, look, sorry, I'm not aware of any budgetary constraints, but that's something I can potentially come back to you on, or we'd address as part of the report back to council.
Right.
But just on that, am I right that we're no longer doing some planned work on Beeley Victoria intersection?
So yes, so the original project that was approved by council a couple of years ago, and then it was put on hold. That involved a reasonably significant upgrade to the Beeley-Papanui intersection. We've done some further work on that and updated the model. Travel patterns have changed since that time. We think it's best to leave that intersection pretty much as is. Make some changes to the left turn into Papanui Road, but not the full upgrade that was envisaged back a couple of years ago. So it's really what you're looking at as a streetscape project as much as a transport project. So you're really focusing on the mid-blocks as opposed to the intersections.
I just all of the budget be spent on the consultation side of it, and then actually that creeps into the spend of the actual project. I suppose that's all I'm saying. That will leave it at that. Well, all the extra engagement and stuff like that, because I know that there's people down south are very keen to get it started. And the other one was the Linwood Pool, obviously the carry forward there for this financial year, and that's related to around the concept design approval. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't project creep to the end date of that project, and so that, you know, we're still going to be seeing the end date the same as what was agreed at the community board, I suppose. Yeah, so there was a community board update on the 4th of February, which talked about some constraints around design at the moment, because we've obviously we've done a little bit more work in the in-ground work, so there is some remediation that needs to be done to the ground. That was all explained at the community board meeting, and we did talk about moving from the Q3 September and possibly put an indicative date in Q4 because of those constraints that we've currently got. But it was agreed that the time now is best spent looking at the community outcomes and achieving those community outcomes through the design being accurate. So it was agreed at that time that we would leave that at that date would be now changed to Q4 for 2021. And so that's not going to affect the end date of completion? So that's so that's Q4 2021. It was initially Q3 2021. Okay, so we're still not creeping into 2022? No, not at the moment. And we're not going to? And the team are working extremely hard at the moment to ensure that we pull back all the time we can. Okay. So, yeah. That's all. Thank you. Finished?
I've got Yanni, then Phil, then Glenn.
Thank you. It's just on Victoria Street. It's going to ITI committee. Is it going to the community board?
Just stay up here.
The briefing to the ITI committee is to seek their blessing for re-engagement. So the council's already asked us to re-engage previously. We can bring it back to the community board if required before we do that.
Part of the project sits within the community board delegations. So it's, I mean, I'm just concerned that there's no visibility at the community board over it.
Well, for decision making, it will come back through the community board. So that's when we'd normally bring it back to the community board before it goes through ITI to council.
But part of it, I mean, part of it's in the Central City delegations, which is council, understood, but another half of it is in the board's area. So I would hope that the board's involved. You know, we're just going through community board delegations and partnerships. It seems pretty fundamental that the board should be involved throughout all the processes around it.
I'd have to check with the project manager as to exactly what other steps are in there, but I can come back to you on that.
Yeah, well, I'd suggest if you do any kind of drop-in stuff that the community board be invited along to that.
Yeah, or if there's a hearing panel being set up, or, I mean, you're saying it's not consultation, but, you know, part of the problem previously is the clarity around who's making decisions, because when things go to a community board for decision and then come to council for the same project but different parts of it, it's very confusing for the community to know who to talk to. So I think getting some clarity around that would be really important, and the board being fully involved and informed and being able to give feedback with the ITI committee. I think there's been ITI committees and joint board meetings previously, so maybe that's a way forward.
Okay, Phil?
Thank you. Richard, I just want to ask you, in one of the bring back, for the coastal pathway, due to the construction being faster than we had thought, which is fine, but I just wondered where that bring back funding fits in relation to possible NZTA funding for the as part of these projects.
I might have to check. My understanding is that the coastal pathway is not part of the major cycleway MCR routes, so wouldn't attract the funding that we get for some of the MCRs. But we are going to put it up as a potential project for targeted enhanced. Yes. For targeted enhanced funding from NZTA.
So would be apply for that sort of subsidy for the whole of the coastal pathway rather than just a section?
Not for the 3 out of the 6 sections or 3 out of the 5 have been constructed. So those ones we can't retrospectively
can't
apply,
retrospectively, right.
because targeted enhanced funding is something which was only introduced last year by the new government, but we're going to apply for the section which is currently being constructed.
Right, the current one. Because I wasn't clear where those bring back figures fitted with the annual plan, where it's a different figure. That's all. So I wasn't clear about the context for it, because the proposed budget for the annual plan is 2.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't sure where that figure fitted at all in terms of any context with this bring back money, which is nearly 3.7 million.
I think the total budget is the same.
Yeah, the total budget is the same. It didn't get adjusted, unfortunately, as part of the draft annual plan.
For the whole, you mean the total budget for the whole project, or for this section?
Total budget for the section that's being constructed at the present time for this project, which is the Surf Club to Shag Rock. So the project that is in the annual plan at the present time, or in the LTP at the present time, is for the Surf Club to Shag Rock. The other bit is out at the end of the long-term plan.
Okay.
So when we talk about the coastal pathway, that's the bit we're talking about.
Right.
And that's the bit that has budget.
So do we know how much that part is? Or?
Yes. And it'll be completed within the budget that's in the annual, within the budget that's in the long-term plan.
I mean, where perhaps we need maybe some more information later, is that didn't quite fit for the annual plan part. And I'm aware this is just...
The annual plan's only dealing with next year, and this bring back has come to light post the draft annual plan that may need to be adjusted at the end of the annual plan process.
Okay.
But it's within the budget. So the construction is being done within the 3-year budget that's available for the project.
We've got a memo coming to ITI on this,
Okay.
in addition to the one from...
So I think we should receive information about those costs in terms of the total costs too for it, please, if that can be part of that.
There is, yeah. So there's no addition. Just to be clear to the committee, there is no additional cost over the budget that's allowed for within the 3-year period, funded period. It's just being delivered early.
Okay.
Okay, Glenn.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Ref. That big number, page 24, the 170 underspend, is that a straight out deliverability or timing or accounting or a combination of all three issue there?
Are you talking about the trend graphs?
No, the final sentence on page 24, the chart as it stands will indicate underspend of the original planned budget by approximately 170. So leading up to it, it sounds like deliverability, although it also talks about spend. So
let me, probably best if I explain those graphs. These graphs are an opportunity to present a forward view of capital works. Now, they're not factual. They're based on 3-month rolling averages. So we take historical data and we look at the trends that's flowing to, and then we extrapolate them out and take them to a year-end point. That's the dotted line. That's the dotted line is the guesswork. Now, based on trend, everything would indicate around about a 400, at this time, a $400 million finish, which would indicate an underspend of budget by 170 million. Now, because they're based on 3-month rolling averages, and we've had 2 periods of festive holidays and slowdown, and you can see that from the forecast and the actual spends, we're down in the 20s as opposed to 30s or 40s, that will be pulling that line down, and it will also be pulling the actual line down as well. So I would expect and hope that that number starts to come up as the larger forecast and the larger actual delivery numbers start to come through. Last month it was about 430. It's dropped to 400. I suspect and guess it will start to come back up above that line again as the numbers start to come through for the bigger months.
And I guess my question's around the cause of that. So is it delivery or...?
Well, it's non-delivery of budget. It's a budget number, that's all it is. Yep. So it's saying that at this time, if everything continued as it's happening, yep, you would be $170 million underspent against the original budget.
Because it hasn't been delivered? Because
it hasn't been delivered, as it stands. But these will be artificially low because we've had 2 months of low spend and low delivery, so they'll start to increase again.
Okay, well, thanks.
Okay, Andrew.
Thank you. Really just following on from Glenn's questions. Obviously, the raw figure of 170 million as an underspend would be a concern. I mean, the thing that we're trying to avoid doing is rating for projects which we're not able to deliver in any particular financial year. Yep. But certainly taking your points around the forecasting. And on, again, a raw reading of this report, you know, when you've got a set of data that shows that the number is 400 million, you've got a manager forecast which is 456 million, obviously we need to be able to have the information similar to you've provided to know what weight to give to each of those figures and to take a view on where that might land. But if we take the 72 million out for third-party payments, going back to Raf's point, that leaves us with approximately 100 million. We're talking about needing to spend 48 million as an average monthly spend. Is that considered to be achievable?
Yeah, you need to ask the delivery manager at council. I've got personal opinions in terms of what's achievable, and I look at trends and data. So with regards to borrowing aspects, so DI and PMO, DI branch and PMO regularly talk to essentially where the numbers will land. We look at historical trend patterns. At this time, there's approximately 465 million has been allowed for by corporate in terms of borrowing. $45 million of that is for V-based equity. So at this time, DI, based on historical trends and based on smart decision making, is looking to borrow around about 420 million specifically for this. And they are generally within a pinch every year of being above or below that number. So that's really good prudence. Is it deliverable? I can only go by what the project managers are telling us they're going to spend, and they may well spend $456 million. The year typically ramps up in the last couple of months, as you can see, and historically we actually deliver quite well to that. In terms of the last 2 months, in terms of getting projects and invoicing and payments through the door. So looking at trend, there is an aggressive ramp, I would agree. The PMs are staying at this time 456, and that's a number from the staff at the coalface, so that's a number that we have to base our information on. The extrapolation data, which says 170 shortfall, is fictional. It's looking at trends and nothing else. So I'm not at the coalface. I'm just looking at data that the PMs are providing and then taking trend based on that. So I would say that the 456 is a number we aim for, and that's the number we talk to at this time. There will likely be, as there always are, additional carry forwards coming through, projects that are delayed for whatever reason, but equally so there will be some bringbacks to offset that as well.
So that represents a forecast to deliver 80% of the planned budget for the current financial year.
Roughly, yes.
How does that compare to the previous year, both in terms of the raw number and the percentage?
When I started 2012, we were probably hitting about 60% of our planned budget, and that was down at 200. So last year was our best year ever, both in terms of forecast accuracy as well as size of spend. The contributors to that were probably significant vertical and major facilities projects. Now we need to factor in that some of them have been completed, some are near completion, and some are yet to start. But typically, if you take a small number of those projects, they would contribute to a significant part of that spend. So as they start to drop off, the business has to obviously recover and find other projects, which it does through its annual planning and LTP process, to backfill them. The challenge as always is recovering a monthly spend on the town hall of perhaps $5 or $6 million with a number of smaller projects that require similar amounts of time, similar amounts of staff time, similar efforts, similar community board involvement. So look at 456, it's still a challenge, absolutely, based on what I'm looking at. I think 400 is too low, and I think the number will be the sort of 420, 435 in terms of that range is what I can see just now.
So that would represent, when you take the third-party payments out, maybe a shortfall of 65, 70 million?
Well, it depends, because you may well have paid some of those third-party payments, but the shortfall itself, in terms of what we're in control of, would be around that, yes.
Yeah. And just one final question, if I can. The 571.8 million that we refer to as the approved FY19 budget.
Yes.
Obviously, there's the headline number, which is the 571.8, but then there's what that is made up of as well. So when we're making this comparison, is that budget with the projects in it as we approved at the LTP, or is it the 571.8 made up of projects which are as a result of bringbacks and changes and so on that have happened since then? So are we comparing this with what we expected at the time we approved the LTP?
Yeah, well, through the chair, the project budget is made up of projects that are approved through annual plan LTP process, plus additional carry forwards that come through from previous year. So that 571 includes carry forwards that council approve through finance teams. They present them at the year end and say these are the carry forwards the business is requesting, and when they're approved they're added to whatever budget you've planned and incorporated. Pete Langbein has a good model where look, we assume we'll always have some carry forward into the next year, and we assume we'll always be taking some monies out on a yearly basis into the following year. So from a financial basis it's a net neutral. From a delivery basis it can present challenges depending on how much carry forward is pushed into the next delivery year. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Aaron.
Yeah, follow on from Phil's question before, but it was just around why are why is the coastal pathway not an MCR?
I don't know. Lynette, would you like to answer that question?
Because
Can I answer that? Because when it originally applied for to be an MCR, it was declined because it wasn't deemed as an essential part of the rest of the link. So it wasn't it was deemed as recreational rather than commuter. So that was probably 5 years ago. But things have changed now, so who knows?
I think the important thing is now that NZTA have the TIFA funding, actually the fact that it's not part of the MCR doesn't...
Yeah, so the application is being made for consideration under that. Yeah.
So I just kept hearing that but didn't know the actual story. I just didn't realise no one in Sumner commuted by bike or Redcliffs. Or
we went through this a couple of years ago. It was a bone of contention because it was originally in the plan as part of the network.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So yeah.
We'll bury that bone for the moment. Okay. Any other questions, Jimmy?
One question on page 26. The top 10 carry forward. One of the projects is 924. Postwell Junction Road Extension. I just want to know what's the rationale, the $5.4 million carry forward to the next financial year, because my understanding this project has been discussing for several years, and also the Waterloo, the industrial business park, they would like to contribute for $1 million. Whether they still, have this commitment, I just want to know.
Richard?
Who can answer?
So, through you, Mr. Chair, just on Horswell Junction Road, part of the complexities around that has been the negotiations with Kiwi Rail, so that it's been quite complex in terms of getting the design over the line, but Dave Adamson had a very productive meeting with them yesterday, so it seems like that's all now been unlocked and we can proceed and get on with building it very soon. So
that's huge progress.
That's huge progress, and it's great, and it's been an issue which has troubled us with some of our projects, not just Horswell Junction Road, because they have obviously their own design, their own kind of capital requirements, and working in with them has previously been a challenge, but now, post yesterday's meeting, we think it's going to be a lot better.
My question is whether those $1 million contribution is part of this budget or not.
No, my understanding is that's council's contribution, which is from our LTP/annual plan.
But total budget is 7.8. Or total budget regarding to this project is 6.8 only.
So
that's current year budget. Current year is 6.8.
So the current year budget is 6.8.
and meet the needs.
But we're hoping to progress construction on it very soon.
Yes.
So post yesterday's meeting, it seems like those issues which I referenced have now been unlocked, which is good. In terms of the one.
No, it's not there's enough there. That's the council's budget for it.
Yes.
Yep.
That's the total budget.
That's the total budget.
But whether staff have engaged with the Waterloo Industrial Park regarding those, they have intention to contribute $1 million, whether still go.
It's come off the table.
Dave, do you want to say something?
Tomorrow, well, in the next day or so, Carly and I had a meeting with NZ Rail. They're going to give us a service agreement, which is great. That budget, the whole capital budget, is a gross budget of what the project costs. It doesn't talk about where the funding is, because there's a component that might come from private area, it might come from rates, and it might come from NZTA in that project. We can't unlock it until we unlock that part of Kiwi Rail. And it's a little bit like a number of other projects that are going to get carried forward. Hereford Street, we couldn't unlock it until we've got through the consultation. Victoria Street, we've got to do that the same sort of way. Each one of those is $5 or $6, $7 million. This one's $7 million. So we're trying to unlock them. But rightly so, council put that in the capital budget, because if it all went right, we would have wanted to spend that as quickly as we could. So it's just a yearly change, but we are trying to unlock that. And I must admit, the meeting yesterday on a wide range of projects with Kiwi Rail, because we do interface with them quite a lot, was probably the most productive meeting I've had with Kiwi Rail for a number of years. So it was
good to hear. Okay, any other questions? Yanni?
Sorry, I'm just concerned. So have we just lost the $1 million, or are they going to, now that we've unlocked it with Kiwi Rail, we're going to get the $1 million?
We will be still talking to those developers, because it does unlock part of their subdivision. Now they're a syndicate from Southland, I think, aren't they? They're syndicate from down the bottom of the South Island somewhere. So Gore, is it?
Well, the chairman's
I don't know. So yeah, we are still talking to that.
Right. Okay. And this, the other question I had was, so the report's good from a high-level perspective. You can see across different council units, and also you can see the top 10 bring forwards and carry forwards. But there's nothing in here around ward-based reporting. So I did email through because I couldn't be at the informal. But can we get some information around visibility of what's happening in terms of local projects at community boards, and what's the best way to do that? We've raised that before. We're still not getting that information.
We discussed it this morning at the informal, and that is coming.
Can we get a date for it? Because we're currently in the annual plan consultation, and thank you for making that point. The problem is that the communities can't see what's happening with projects in their areas to make informed submissions. So it's quite a critical piece of information. If we wait to next month's meeting, we can't inform the community because it's too late. Submissions have closed. Yeah.
So we will be resending around the information that we sent to you in September and did resend early in the year. So we will be sending that again so that you can perhaps refresh yourselves and also your community boards with the projects by ward.
What I'm trying to understand, like I can understand the budget kind of stuff. What people can't see is how those projects are tracking against budget and against time frame. That's the critical thing. We just had a guy come to council last week about a project that was approved about 2 years ago that he's had no communication on, and is incredibly frustrated that 3 cars have gone through someone's fence and he can't understand what's happening.
Okay, what we have asked is for community boards to get reports on capital projects in their area. So that will come to your community board, and that's where you can discuss whether you've got projects that aren't being delivered.
Is it going to be in time to inform the community to make submissions to our annual plan?
Well, yes, that's the job of the community board. You make your submission based on the information that you get.
We've had that information yet. We've got 3 weeks left, and community events on the weekend, and communities...
Well, apparently you have had that information, but it's going to be sent out again. And if it's not the information, then come back to us. Okay, any other questions? Right, thank you, Jed. I have a resolution here to receive the information. I'm happy to move that. Seconded Jimmy. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried.